Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers defeat the Nashville Predators 4-0 at Madison Square Garden. They take care of business in a game where, after the trade of Ryan Lindgren and Jimmy Vesey to Colorado, you get the Ranger debuts of Calvin DeHaan and Juuso Parssinen. Um, really a big thing coming out of practice earlier in the day was that Riley Smith was going to be held out of this game, which he was, for roster management purposes, I think is what it was termed. Basically, he's going to be traded by the deadline. So, not sure exactly when, but we know that it'll be by Friday, March 7th. And so they really are. I mean, and that once that trade happened with Lindgren and VC, to me, Riley Smith getting traded was a very likely thing to occur. Didn't know for 100% sure that would happen, but this confirms it. And as far as other things that could shake out, I'm not sure. I think that Chris Drury will try to keep an open mind. The only other player that, like, in terms of me, just and I'm going to say it's more unlikely than likely, but the one that I still think is maybe possible is Chris Kreider. Again, chances are that that won't happen, and he is on IR right now. I don't really see it as it's an upper body injury. I don't really think this is a major injury of any kind. Feels like there's a little bit of funny business going on. I'm not really sure what the end game is exactly, but he'd be one for me, like, to keep an eye on beyond Riley Smith. After that, really, I think you're dealing with very, very minor things. And Zach Jones has been a name that's out there, but Zach Jones tonight, he played the most of anyone. He had the highest ice time on the whole Rangers team. And with Jones, he was on the number one power play unit, which did score a goal. They really weren't that effective. I still prefer Jones or I don't like the 5 forward unit that they had going against Toronto. So this one, the Rangers ended up probably, if I had to guess, what was it, 1 for 5? Yeah, 1 for 5, which is fine. But like just watching them, it wasn't great. But still, definitely a different look to the team. And we'll discuss some of the lines and defensive pairings. And really, the person who I should have started out with was Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick had a shutout in his this was his 800th NHL game. Excuse me. And he made all 34 saves, 34 shots, 34 saves for Quick. Some were really good. I feel like I should just discuss them right now because I may forget as I go through the game. But he made a really good one on Michael McCarron in the second period. And then in the third, especially, where Nashville put up 19 shots in the third. Rangers were like the better team. The first half of the game, it was really all Rangers. And then the Rangers kind of sat back a little bit. And, Nashville started to get a lot of opportunities. But Quick made just acrobatic save after acrobatic save. And there was a really good one, I think, on Blankenberg, where Quick used the stick to make the stop. There was another really good one on Jonathan Marchessault a little bit after that, where it was kind of a leg kick sort of save. That's Jonathan Quick's game, right? Like, he has always been acrobatic. He always, he will make highlight reel type saves. Whereas like Shesterkin, when he's at his best, he's kind of more common still. More, I guess, somewhat positionally sound, if you will, where Quick, like, part of his game is sort of going from side to side and just not giving up on a given play. But a game the Rangers, you had to win. Nashville is one of the worst teams in the league, really one of the 3 worst. They're really bad on the road. And I mentioned previously, like, they did have a pretty inspiring win against Winnipeg to end the Winnipeg Jets 11-game win streak. So it's not to say that they aren't capable of getting some wins, but this roster is pretty depleted. There's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of veterans as well that are kind of more than on the back 9 of their careers. But the Rangers were shut out by Nashville in Nashville on December 17th, 2-0. So, definitely goes down as one of the worst losses of the season. At that time, the Rangers were in a major state of flux. I think Panarin was injured then. That might have been, I think that was Kakko. I think that ended up going down as Kakko's last game as a Ranger. Vakanainen was, new, like that was one of his first or second game. It was just a weird sort of time for them. And the Rangers were really losing at will at that point. But here they get it done. They face the Predators' backup goalie. Look, their starter, UC Saros, has had a rough year, and he had played the day before in a matinee game against the Islanders. So I wasn't surprised to see um, Justus Annunen in for the Preds, and he did what he could. I guess it was nothing really. He wasn't the reason they lost. But as far as the Rangers were concerned, again, Quick gets the start, which was expected for me. Back to back Predators Islanders. Not surprised that they went with Quick against Nashville, and it was his first start since the last game before the break against Columbus, where he won in Columbus. But it was his first appearance since that Buffalo game, the first game out of the break, where Shesterkin gave up 5 goals in the first period, and then Quick came in for the rest of the game. So, it had been a while since his last start, but not that long since his last appearance. As far as let's first talk about defensively, the defensive pairs. So Matthew Robertson continues to be a healthy scratch. That's got to be tough for him. A player that has never cracked an NHL regular season game, and is close, but like it doesn't seem the Rangers really have any real intentions of getting him in there now. It may be a situation where necessity brings that out, but as of now, I expected Calvin DeHaan to be in there, and he was. And you know what, DeHaan, I thought he looked all right. He was physical. He actually had an assist on the Rangers' first goal. So first period, an assist for Calvin DeHaan, which is not part of his game at all. It was a secondary assist. It was more of a defensive play that leads to offense. But I thought that DeHaan, look, expectations as far as he's concerned are not high by me at all. I think he, among the defensemen, he's going to be a third pairing guy, like for sure. But I actually did. I was watching him, and I actually came away feeling like he did the job. And the defensive pairs went a little bit different than maybe was predicted, but you knew it was a situation where you didn't know for sure. Keandre Miller, Will Borgen, that was the number one pair. And you'd expect that to be the top pair for as long as Adam Fox is out. That's like going to be the unequivocal top pair. I don't see that changing unless injuries, bring about something different. The second pair was Vakanainen with Schneider. So last game, they had Vakanainen on his offside with Lindgren and Jones and Schneider. I like this better. Vakanainen and Schneider, that's been your pair. That's been your third pair for most of this season, right? It had been Lindgren, Fox, Miller, Borgen, and Vakanainen and Schneider. So there's a familiar feeling there between the two. And so that was pair number two. And then the bottom one was DeHaan with Zach Jones on his offside. Now, and I believe we've seen that before. I don't think this is the first time that Zach Jones has been on the right side. Thought he acquitted himself fine. So that's a new one, obviously, DeHaan being in his first game as a Ranger. But you have a veteran with a young guy, and they made it work. Again, it's not one that you're going to really want to have in the long run, right? Like if Adam Fox does make it back, in time, you kind of reassess then as far as how you want to go about it. But overall, I felt like they did a good job. Again, third period was not good for the team as a whole, but feeling as if they, I don't, there's a chance that they could possibly keep this together, despite the fact you look at these names and there's a lot of new faces and some younger players, and like it's kind of a mix of everything. And you have 4 lefties and only 2 righties. But again, I think that I'm hopeful that they can make this work. And I think trading away Trouba, trading away Lindgren, these were things that had to be done. It's unfortunate that Fox is hurt currently, but you've had some really good contributions. Will Borgen's been a very nice acquisition. Vakanainen's been, if nothing else, he's been fairly steady. And I want to see Braden Schneider get more opportunity. I've been saying that. I hope that this current situation leads to him getting more chances. And Keandre Miller, he's a top guy now. Talk about this defense with no Fox in the lineup. Keandre Miller is the longest tenured. Well, yes, Keandre Miller is the longest tenured Ranger defenseman besides Adam Fox. And so he's got to take on a little bit more leadership on that back end, forwards wise. So with this, Riley Smith, a healthy scratch again. He will be traded, and we will discuss that when that does happen. I'm hoping the Rangers can acquire, somewhere along the lines of a second-round pick for him. I believe that can be attainable. I want the Rangers to try to get back what they gave to Pittsburgh. Now, I don't think it'll quite equal that. I think that ended up being maybe a second and a fourth. I think it might have been a second and a fourth or thereabouts as far as that deal was concerned. But we'll see what happens there. Arthur Kaliev continues to be a healthy scratch, so not great as far as Kaliev is concerned. The fact that it kind of who I actually thought was okay. He wasn't. I thought that he served a purpose, but I also understand that the Rangers structure on the lines right now is you have a clear top six and a clear bottom six. For a while, whether that be when Philip Hedl was still on the team or even after that, there was a time where it kind of felt like, okay, you kind of have three lines and a clear fourth. Now it's a little bit different. Again, there's a clear divide. And so Kaliev, in a way, doesn't necessarily fit the description of someone who would be in a bottom six type role, right? You could work with him in a more offensive third line, but not so much with this. So I do kind of get that, but he's kind of, I don't know if it's on the outs. I don't know if I'd put it that way, but currently he's on the outside. And Brett Berard, and I think I alluded to this in the Lindgren VC episode. Like I spoke about the fact that Berard was recalled. And I don't know if I had specifically said, like, it makes way more sense now. And it might have been a thought in my mind, but, I should have realized when Berard was called up that that was going to be a Riley Smith related thing. And I did say, for Berard to be called up, like, they're not going to sit him. And so he goes into the lineup and he actually scores in this game as well. So his first game since I think his first NHL game since January 9th, and he scores a goal. He's always noticeable out there. He's got a high motor. He's someone that I think can make it in the NHL. I don't know if he's going to be someone that ever, he's not very big. Size is definitely going to be a little bit of an issue for him, but like I think that there will be a place for him in this league for sure. And so basically, you end up having the top two lines as is the Trocheck line, with Panarin and Lafreniere. And look, that line does score a goal tonight. I'm still not really high on that line right now, and really wouldn't mind them being broken up at some point. But that's what it is now. You have JT Miller centering, Will Cooley and Mika Zibanejad, and Zibanejad continues to really play good hockey on that right wing. It seems like that was a very smart switch by the coaching staff and one that is paying dividends. And that chemistry between Zibanejad and JT Miller is really showing itself. Then the third line, and this is where it gets a little bit on paper, a little ugly, I guess, but it was Parsonen centering Othman and Brodzinski. So it's interesting, like Johnny Brodzinski, after all of the shakeout, like he ends up like still like having a pretty decent sized role on this team, and it's deserved. On the one hand, but again, it depends. Like if Chris Kreider, we'll see. Like if Kreider returns to the lineup at some point, Brodzinski's spot is probably at risk, but you still have these young rookies as well, right? You still like Othman and Berard. Nothing's assured for them. But that was your third line. And then your fourth line was Carrick centering Berard and Rempe. And we'll talk a little bit about Matt Rempe. Another Matt Rempe situation. I don't think anything will come of this, but we'll discuss it. So that's kind of the way the lineup looked. But anyway, Jonathan Quick, 800 NHL game, and really made it count in a big, big way. So 19 seconds in, it would be Cole Smith hooking Braden Schneider. So Rangers have a chance to score in the power play right away, and they don't. And again, I didn't love the way the power play looked. That all said, leave this as the unit. Leave Zach Jones there. I wouldn't want to go away from it just yet. And they did score one goal out of the 5 chances they had. Then at 4:07, Matt Rempe is called for elbowing. I believe it was NHL.com. It says Cole Smith. I think it was Blackenberg was the one that was hit by Rempe. And that was initially called as an elbowing penalty. And then Andreas Englund comes in to defend Blackenberg because he was down, and he gets into a fight with Rempe. A lot of blood. They were definitely throwing some haymakers on this one, and Englund, going in to defend his guy, his teammate, and ultimately it ends up evening up because you get the 2-minute instigator on Englund. He also gets a 10-minute misconduct. So for Rempe, it's this. I don't think he'll be suspended. The reason you question is because of the history, right? And so it always makes you wonder. So I can't say for certain that he won't be. I think that he'll get away with this one. But look, he's got to be smarter in terms of the way he goes into the boards. And it was kind of, again, he threw the elbow out there a little bit. He did. Like, it wasn't vicious. It wasn't malicious. But again, like, I understand both sides of it. I really do. And Rempe is viewed differently. He is treated differently by the refs. There's no question about it. And so he's got to be smart. I think he'll come away with this one unscathed, but it was a penalty. It wasn't a 5-minute major. Honestly, I thought they were going to call a 5-minute major just because it's Rempe and there was a lot of action going on. But to my surprise, only a 2-minute elbowing penalty, which was correctly called. Like it was a penalty for sure. But again, the Rempe thing's always interesting. And look, like Rempe, um, you know, he has been fairly effective in the fourth line. In limited minutes, he has gotten the job done for now. So, he's got to stay in the lineup because there's a spot for him, clearly. Like he is not going to be a healthy scratch. Given the current situation, there is a lot of healthy scratches before him. So he has an opportunity to play night in, night out. Anyway, that takes care of itself. And then the Rangers score. At 8:32, Artemi Panarin scores his 24th goal of the season, assisted by Lafreniere and Calvin DeHaan. So DeHaan gets an assist in his first 8 minutes and 32 seconds into his Ranger career. And it was really a play by DeHaan that he makes a nice play defensively to break up a play at the blue line. Gives it to Lafreniere. And Lafreniere, look, I'm still very disappointed by what I've seen from Alexis Lafreniere. I think he has a lot more to give. I think he really wasn't able to take his game to new heights. He's regressed from what we saw a year ago. But Lafreniere makes a nice pass to Artemi Panarin here. And Panarin, who had a nice night. Look, it's against a not good Nashville team, but I'll still take it because Panarin really hasn't shown much lately. So hopefully this can get him going. Panarin ends up taking a pretty heavy slap shot pass on and in to make it 1-0 Rangers. So, maybe a little bit of a surprise, right? Thinking maybe he'd go wrist shot, but he goes slap shot and just perfectly placed to give the Rangers a 1-0 lead. Then Steven Stamkos, it's been a total disaster for him in Nashville. Trips Mika Zibanejad at 8:51. It was actually the first of 3 penalties drawn by Zibanejad on the night. Rangers don't score on this power play either. Rangers take a 1-0 lead going into the second. They outshot Nashville 15-6 in the first. So really, they could have been up by a lot more than just one. We go to the second period, and early on, Zibanejad draws another penalty. It's a trip by Jonathan Marchessault so at the 26-second mark of the second period. So a couple of good starts in the first and second for the Rangers, and they take advantage of that on their third power play try. J.T. Miller scores his 15th goal of the season, combined between the Canucks and the Rangers, assisted by Panarin and Zibanejad. So give Panarin 2 points on the night there. A nice pass by Panarin, where Zibanejad's able to find Panarin in space. Panarin sees JT Miller to his left and a very quick shot by Miller. It wasn't hard, but it was just he got it right off the stick right away. So Ananen, not much. He was a little bit too late to get over, and it goes past them. So it makes it 2-0 Rangers right there. And then soon thereafter at 3:25, it would be Keandre Miller scoring from JT Miller and Mika Zibanejad. So a Miller connection there. Keandre's 5th goal of the season. So give JT Miller 2 points of the night. Give Mika Zibanejad 2 points tonight. So Zibanejad extends his point streak to, I believe, 6 games, I think is the number. And JT Miller, I think, is on maybe a 5-game point streak. 16 point streak for Zibanejad. Actually, 3 goals and 6 assists, 9 points in those 6 games for Mika. And for JT Miller as well, like the statistics are pretty impressive as far as what he's done since being reacquired by the Rangers. I think he's got maybe about 12 points in 10 games, so pretty good stuff from him. Really has not disappointed in his return. But this is a goal where Zibanejad finds JT Miller with some open ice. Miller showing a little bit of patience going into the zone and finding a streaking Keandre Miller on the right side, and a very slick goal by Keandre, who, look, he scored very nice goals before, and this is a backhand roof to give the Rangers a 3-0 lead. And then, look, I think the Rangers still played pretty well about halfway into the second period, but things eventually drop off. At 6:37, Calvin DeHaan, one of the, a negative for him. He does take a delay game penalty. Rangers do kill it off. And then 9:55, Justin Barron, the brother of former Ranger Morgan Barron, he's called for delay game. And that is killed off by Nashville as well. So, I think the Predators kind of got their game going a little bit as the second period progressed. The Rangers outshot the Preds 13-9 in the second. And the third period was just the Jonathan Quick show. This ends up becoming a Jonathan Quick game. even though it was a shutout, like to me, like I wasn't, it wasn't Quick wasn't really necessarily going to be like a feature, but it became that way. And honestly, a lot of I mentioned some specific ones previously, but really like it seemed like it was a matter of time before Nashville scored, but Quick just every single time was up for the task. And in the third, at 3:41, Sam Carrick is called for goalie interference. And before that penalty is even over, Blackenberg hooks Mika Zibanejad. So it becomes 4-on-4. Eventually, it's even strength, stays 3-0. And eventually, again, kind of against the flow of play, it would be a goal for Brett Berard. Again, in his first game in a little less than 2 months in the NHL, scores his fourth goal of the season, assisted by Sam Carrick. So nice job by Carrick to kind of digging it out of the boards. And Berard with a quick release. So with a little more than 3 minutes left in the game, Rangers take a 4-0 lead. And they win by that final score, 4-0 over the Nashville Predators. And the way they won was nice too, in the fact that you have a big game against the Islanders the next night, and I don't feel as if the Rangers exerted a crazy amount of energy to get the job done. So maybe again, I don't want to make excuses for them because this probably isn't the case, but maybe there was a little bit of taking the foot off the gas, knowing what you had the next night. I don't know if it works like that. It probably doesn't, and I don't think the coaching staff would necessarily want it to be that way. You don't want to get into bad habits, but the way it played out, they seem no worse for wear injury-wise, and so a very interesting game, Islanders-Rangers. After the Rangers beat the Islanders then came back with a couple of wins at Boston, home against Nashville. I'm thinking that this Sorokin versus Shesterkin matchup should be a really good one for a couple of reasons. Sorokin was not good versus the Rangers in the matchup last week at UBS Arena. Shesterkin was good. However, surrounding that, he has not been great. And he really, to me, was a reason that they lost versus Toronto. You then follow it up with Jonathan Quick putting up a shutout. The onus is kind of on Igor to have a good night. So I think, and look, watch, this could end up being, goals all over the place. But I think that Sorokin and Shesterkin, there's a lot of motivation there. A little bit of a friendly rivalry as well between the two. And so I think that you're going to get, good performances out of both of them. And the Islanders are at the point right now where they're close. They're close to playoff positioning. Rangers are 3 points ahead of the Islanders, and the Islanders have a game in hand at the moment. And I do think that push comes to shove, the Islanders will be sellers by the deadline. But I think that Lamoriello, I don't know. They have not shown their hand just yet. And I think what they do in this Ranger game probably goes a long way. Potentially, certainly to me, a loss kind of solidifies. If they lose and get no points against the Rangers, I think that solidifies like a Brock Nelson or a Kyle Palmieri being on their way out the door. If they win, then I don't know. Based on loose track record, I wonder what happens. But I think an interesting rivalry game. The Rangers have been pretty good in these head-on matchups with their main competition. We'll see if that continues. It's been uncanny. It's been kind of uncanny how good it's been. But like I had kind of said, I think after the Toronto game, like the mission here is beat Nashville and beat the Islanders. Well, you've done the first thing, and that was the easier one, right? You take care of Nashville. Now the Islander game, it's big. You got to keep pace with some of these teams. Columbus is really playing really good hockey at the moment. And the Rangers are 2 points out of a playoff spot right now. So I think a very important game at Madison Square Garden. 2 games now. Islanders and Caps at home until the deadline. We know that a Riley Smith trade is on the horizon. We'll see if anything else is in play. The Ranger roster continues to be in flux. However, they're playing some pretty good hockey within that. And that was on display here at Madison Square Garden as the Rangers win final score against the Nashville Predators 4-0. And now we will see how they do in the second game of a back-to-back against the New York Islanders.